If you're over 60 years old, what you're not doing in the first 30 minutes after waking up could be the reason you're losing up to 8% of your muscle mass every single decade. And I'm not talking about exercise. I'm talking about something so simple, so overlooked, that when I tell my patients about it, they can't believe they've been missing it for years. This one morning habit, when done correctly, can literally stop sarcopenia in its tracks and reverse muscle loss that you thought was just a normal part of aging. But here's what concerns me the most. 90% of people over 60 are doing the exact opposite of what their muscles desperately need every single morning, and it's setting them up for falls, fractures, and loss of independence. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could be the difference between thriving in your 70s and 80s or struggling with simple daily tasks. My name is Dr. Emily Hartman, and I'm a geriatric medicine specialist who has spent the last 15 years working specifically with older adults who are battling muscle loss and frailty. I've seen thousands of patients transform their health, their strength, and their quality of life by understanding what their aging muscles truly need. And today, I'm going to share with you the most powerful morning strategy I've discovered for fighting sarcopenia. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss another health tip designed especially for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and suggestions in the comments below. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Now, let me tell you about Margaret, a 72-year-old retired teacher from Portland, Oregon, who came into my office last spring absolutely devastated. She told me, with tears in her eyes, that she could no longer open jars, carry her groceries from the car, or even get up from her favorite armchair without using her hands to push herself up. Margaret had been an active woman her entire life, loved gardening, and had always prided herself on her independence. But over the past 3 years, she'd noticed her clothes fitting differently, not because of weight gain, but because her arms and legs looked thinner, almost frail. Her daughter had started insisting on helping her with everything, and Margaret felt like she was losing herself. When I examined her and ran some tests, the diagnosis was clear: sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. But here's what changed everything for Margaret. When I asked her about her morning routine, she told me she typically woke up, had a cup of coffee with a piece of toast, and didn't eat anything substantial until lunch. She was essentially starving her muscles for the first 6 hours of every single day. That's when I knew exactly what we needed to fix. Let me explain what's happening in your body right now, especially if you're over 60. Sarcopenia is not just about getting weaker. It's a progressive loss of muscle mass, muscle strength, and muscle function that affects up to 50% of people over 80 years old. But it starts much earlier, usually in your 40s and 50s, and accelerates after 60. Every decade after 30, if you do nothing about it, you can lose 3 to 8% of your muscle mass. Think about that. By the time you're 70, you could have lost up to 30% of the muscle you had at age 30. This isn't just about aesthetics or strength. This is about your independence, your ability to recover from illness, your balance, your bone density, and ultimately, your longevity. People with sarcopenia have a 300% increased risk of falls, and falls in older adults often lead to fractures, hospitalization, and a devastating decline in quality of life. But here's what most people don't understand about sarcopenia. It's not inevitable, and it's not irreversible. Your muscles at 60, 70, or even 80 years old still have an incredible capacity to grow and strengthen. The problem is that as we age, our muscles become what we call anabolic resistant. This means they don't respond to nutrition and exercise the same way they did when we were younger. They need more protein, more stimulus, and more strategic timing to trigger muscle protein synthesis. And this is where the morning habit comes in, the one that changes everything. The single most important thing you can do every single morning to fight sarcopenia is this: consume at least 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein within 1 hour of waking up. Not 15 grams, not 20 grams. 30 to 40 grams. And here's why this is absolutely critical. After a night of sleep, your body has been in a fasted state for 8 to 12 hours. During that time, your muscles have been breaking down, a process called muscle protein breakdown, which is completely normal. But in older adults, if you don't provide your muscles with adequate protein first thing in the morning, that breakdown continues, and muscle protein synthesis, the process of building new muscle, doesn't kick in strongly enough to compensate. You're essentially starting every day in a muscle loss state. Let me take you back to Margaret's story. After our initial consultation, I designed a very specific morning protocol for her. Every single morning, within 30 minutes of waking up, she started having a breakfast that included 3 whole eggs, a cup of Greek yogurt, and a slice of whole grain toast. That's approximately 35 grams of protein right there. I also had her doing 10 minutes of simple resistance exercises, things like chair squats, wall push-ups, and bicep curls with light weights right after breakfast. Within 6 weeks, Margaret called me, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. She said, "Dr. Hartman, I opened a jar yesterday without asking for help." I actually opened it. By 3 months, she was carrying her own groceries, getting up from chairs with ease, and had started gardening again. Her muscle mass measurements showed a 7% increase, and her grip strength, which is one of the best predictors of overall health in older adults, had improved by 23%. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, comment "I'm learning" below so I know you're with me. It really helps me understand what content resonates with you. Now, I need to address something that I hear constantly in my practice. "But Dr. Hartman, I'm not hungry in the morning," or "I've never been a breakfast person," or "I just have coffee and I'm fine." I understand. Many of us have been conditioned by decades of habits, and the thought of eating a substantial breakfast, especially one high in protein, feels uncomfortable or even impossible. But here's what I need you to understand. Your appetite in the morning is actually a learned behavior, not a fixed biological state. If you've been skipping breakfast or eating very little for years, your hunger hormones have adjusted accordingly. But your muscles haven't. Your muscles are crying out for nutrition, whether you feel hungry or not. Let me tell you about Robert, a 68-year-old retired accountant from Austin, Texas, who was exactly like this. Robert had never eaten breakfast in his entire adult life. He'd wake up, have black coffee, and wouldn't eat until noon. He came to me because he'd fallen twice in 6 months, both times resulting in minor injuries but major fear. His wife was terrified, and he was starting to limit his activities because he didn't trust his own body anymore. When I suggested the high-protein breakfast protocol, he looked at me like I'd asked him to climb Mount Everest. "I can't eat in the morning," he insisted. "I'll feel sick." But I told him what I'm telling you now. We would start small and build up gradually. For Robert, we began with just a protein shake in the morning, 20 grams of protein mixed with milk and a banana. Simple, easy to consume, not too filling. After 2 weeks, his body started to adjust. He wasn't feeling nauseous anymore. We gradually increased the protein content and added some solid food, a hard-boiled egg, then 2 eggs, then eggs with cottage cheese. Within 8 weeks, Robert was comfortably eating 35 grams of protein every morning, and the results were dramatic. His balance improved, his leg strength increased by 19%, and he told me something that brought tears to my eyes. "I feel like I have my body back. I'm not afraid of falling anymore. I'm not afraid of living." That's the power of giving your muscles what they need when they need it most. But if that surprised you, wait until you hear about the timing factor that most people get completely wrong. It's not just about getting enough protein throughout the day. It's about distributing that protein in a way that maximizes muscle protein synthesis. Research shows that older adults need to consume protein in doses of at least 30 grams per meal to fully stimulate muscle building. If you're eating 15 grams at breakfast, 20 grams at lunch, and 40 grams at dinner, you're only really triggering muscle protein synthesis once that day. But if you eat 30 to 40 grams at breakfast, 30 to 40 grams at lunch, and 30 to 40 grams at dinner, you're triggering that muscle building process 3 times. That's triple the opportunity for your muscles to grow and strengthen. And here's something else that's absolutely crucial. The type of protein matters significantly, especially after 60. Not all proteins are created equal. Your body needs what we call complete proteins that contain all 9 essential amino acids. And specifically, you need high amounts of an amino acid called leucine. Leucine is like the ignition switch for muscle protein synthesis. It signals to your muscles that it's time to build and repair. Animal-based proteins like eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, meat, fish, and poultry are the richest sources of leucine. This is why I specifically recommended eggs and Greek yogurt for Margaret. 3 large eggs contain about 18 grams of protein and nearly 700 milligrams of leucine. 1 cup of Greek yogurt has 20 to 25 grams of protein and about 3,000 milligrams of leucine. Together, they create a leucine-rich, high-protein breakfast that powerfully stimulates muscle building. Now, I want to share with you the story of Linda, a 75-year-old former nurse from Charleston, South Carolina, because her case illustrates something incredibly important about sarcopenia that often gets overlooked. Linda came to me not because she was weak, but because she was exhausted all the time. She had no energy, felt cold constantly, and was gaining weight despite eating less than she ever had before. She assumed it was just part of getting older. But when we did a comprehensive body composition analysis, we discovered she had severe sarcopenia. She'd lost so much muscle mass that her metabolic rate had plummeted. Muscle is metabolically active tissue, meaning it burns calories even at rest. When you lose muscle, your metabolism slows down dramatically. Linda's body had become inefficient at using energy, storing more as fat and having less available for daily activities. She was caught in a vicious cycle, low muscle mass leading to low metabolism, leading to fatigue, leading to less activity, leading to more muscle loss. For Linda, the high-protein morning routine was just the beginning. We also focused on making sure she was getting adequate protein throughout the day, at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which for her meant around 85 grams total per day. But that morning dose was the foundation. Within 4 months, Linda's energy levels had improved so dramatically that she rejoined her walking group, started volunteering at her church again, and told me she felt 20 years younger. Her body composition showed a 9% increase in muscle mass and a corresponding improvement in metabolic rate. She was eating more than before, but maintaining a healthier weight because her body was functioning the way it was supposed to. Let me address another critical aspect that many people miss: hydration and its role in muscle health. Muscle tissue is about 75% water. When you're dehydrated, your muscles can't function properly. Protein synthesis is impaired, and you're at higher risk of injury. Many older adults are chronically dehydrated without even realizing it because the sensation of thirst decreases with age. So, along with your high-protein breakfast, you need to make sure you're drinking adequate water. I recommend 16 to 24 ounces of water within the first hour of waking up, before or with your breakfast. This not only helps with hydration, but also supports digestion and nutrient absorption. Now, let's talk about the exercise component, because protein alone, while incredibly powerful, works even better when combined with resistance training. You don't need to go to a gym. You don't need expensive equipment, but you do need to challenge your muscles. Remember Margaret's morning routine? After her high-protein breakfast, she did 10 minutes of simple resistance exercises. This timing is deliberate and strategic. When you eat protein, especially leucine-rich protein, and then engage in resistance exercise within an hour or two, you create a synergistic effect. The protein provides the building blocks, and the exercise provides the stimulus. Together, they trigger muscle protein synthesis at levels far higher than either one alone. Let me tell you about James, a 66-year-old retired firefighter from Denver, Colorado, who really drove this point home for me. James was still relatively active. He hiked regularly, played golf, and walked his dog every day. But he was losing muscle mass despite all this activity. When I asked about his routine, I discovered he was doing lots of cardiovascular exercise, but almost no resistance training. And his diet, while healthy in many ways, was low in protein, especially in the morning. He'd have oatmeal with fruit for breakfast, maybe 15 grams of protein total. James represents a common misconception that staying active alone is enough to prevent sarcopenia. But cardiovascular exercise, while excellent for heart health, doesn't provide the stimulus needed to build and maintain muscle mass as we age. I put James on the high-protein morning protocol and introduced a simple resistance routine. Bodyweight exercises 3 times per week, things like squats, lunges, push-ups against the wall, and planks. Nothing fancy. Nothing that required a gym membership, but consistent, progressive resistance. Within 3 months, James had gained 6 pounds of muscle mass. His hiking endurance improved, his golf swing got stronger, and he noticed he was recovering faster from physical activities. He told me, "I thought I was doing everything right, but I was missing the 2 most important pieces: enough protein and the right kind of exercise." If you're still with me, I want you to understand something profound. Sarcopenia is not just about muscles. It's about your entire quality of life. Strong muscles support your bones, reducing the risk of osteoporosis and fractures. Strong muscles improve your balance and coordination, preventing falls. Strong muscles regulate your blood sugar more effectively, reducing the risk of diabetes. Strong muscles support your immune system, helping you fight off infections and recover from illness. Strong muscles even affect your mental health, with research showing that people with higher muscle mass have lower rates of depression and cognitive decline. When you protect your muscles, you protect everything. Let me share one more story that I think will really resonate with you. Dorothy, an 82-year-old widow from Seattle, Washington, came to me after spending 3 weeks in the hospital with pneumonia. She'd survived the infection, but the hospitalization had taken a severe toll on her body. She'd lost 12 pounds, mostly muscle, and was so weak that she needed a walker to move around her house. Her daughter was talking about assisted living because Dorothy couldn't safely live alone anymore. Dorothy had always been fiercely independent, and the thought of leaving her home of 40 years was breaking her heart. She looked at me during that first appointment and said, "Dr. Hartman, please help me get strong enough to stay home. That's all I want." We implemented the high-protein morning routine immediately, but for Dorothy, we had to be even more aggressive. She was having 3 high-protein meals a day, totaling over 100 grams of protein, along with gentle resistance exercises adapted to her current ability level. We started with seated exercises, using resistance bands and light weights. The progress was slow at first, frustratingly slow, but Dorothy was determined. Every week she got a little stronger. By 3 months, she'd regained the weight she'd lost and then some, but this time it was muscle, not just fat. By 6 months, she no longer needed the walker. She was cooking her own meals, doing her own shopping, and had even started tending to her garden again. Her daughter called me one day and said, "I don't know what you did, but you gave me my mother back." But I didn't do it. Dorothy did it. She did it by showing up every single morning and giving her body, giving her muscles, what they needed to heal and grow stronger. Now, I want to address some common concerns and questions that I hear regularly. First, won't eating that much protein damage my kidneys? This is a myth that needs to be put to rest. Unless you have pre-existing kidney disease, high protein intake is not harmful to healthy kidneys. In fact, studies in older adults show that protein intakes of up to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight are safe and beneficial. However, if you do have kidney disease, you should work with your doctor to determine the appropriate protein intake for your specific situation. Second, I'm vegetarian or vegan. Can I still get enough protein in the morning? Absolutely. It requires more planning, but it's definitely possible. Plant-based proteins like tofu, tempeh, legumes, quinoa, and plant-based protein powders can provide adequate protein. The key is combining different sources to ensure you're getting all essential amino acids and reaching that 30 to 40 gram target. For example, a breakfast of tofu scramble with beans, a slice of whole grain toast, and a plant-based protein shake can easily hit 35 to 40 grams of protein. Third, what if I have digestive issues or can't tolerate large meals? This is where working with a healthcare provider becomes important. We can start with smaller amounts and build up gradually, as we did with Robert. We can also use more easily digestible protein sources like protein powders, eggs, or Greek yogurt. The goal is to find what works for your body while still meeting your muscles' protein needs. Here's something else I want you to think about: the cost of not addressing sarcopenia. A hip fracture from a fall can cost over $40,000 in medical expenses, not to mention the physical and emotional toll. Loss of independence and needing assisted living care can cost $5,000 or more per month. The loss of mobility and quality of life is immeasurable. But the cost of preventing sarcopenia? A few extra dollars per week on protein-rich foods, some basic resistance bands or light weights, maybe $30. 10 to 15 minutes every morning dedicated to your muscle health. When you think about it that way, it's not a cost. It's the best investment you'll ever make. Let me give you a practical example of what your morning could look like starting tomorrow. You wake up and drink a large glass of water. Within 30 to 60 minutes, you prepare and eat a high-protein breakfast. This could be 3 eggs scrambled with vegetables and a cup of Greek yogurt with berries. Or it could be a protein smoothie made with protein powder, Greek yogurt, banana, and nut butter. Or it could be cottage cheese with nuts and fruit, plus a couple of eggs. The options are endless, but the protein target remains the same: 30 to 40 grams. After breakfast, you do 10 to 15 minutes of simple resistance exercises. Maybe it's chair squats, wall push-ups, and bicep curls with light weights. Maybe it's a resistance band routine. Maybe it's body weight exercises like lunges and planks. The specific exercises matter less than the consistency and the progressive challenge. You might be wondering, how long until I see results? This is such an important question because our modern world has conditioned us to expect instant results. But muscle building, especially in older adults, is a gradual process. You might start feeling stronger and more energetic within 2 to 3 weeks. You might notice you can do activities with less fatigue or difficulty within 4 to 6 weeks, but measurable increases in muscle mass typically take 8 to 12 weeks. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The good news is that every single high-protein breakfast, every single resistance exercise session, is contributing to your muscle health even before you see obvious results. I also want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough: the psychological impact of sarcopenia and the psychological benefits of addressing it. So many of my patients come to me feeling defeated, feeling like their body has betrayed them, feeling like they're a burden to their families. The loss of physical strength often leads to a loss of confidence, social withdrawal, and depression. But when they start implementing these strategies and begin to feel stronger, something beautiful happens. They stand a little taller. They smile more. They start making plans for the future instead of just trying to survive the present. Margaret told me that regaining her strength gave her back her sense of self. James said he felt like he'd reclaimed his masculinity and vitality. Dorothy said she felt worthy and capable again. This is what's at stake. This is why this matters so much. Now, let's talk about some additional strategies that can enhance your morning routine. Vitamin D is crucial for muscle health, and many older adults are deficient. Vitamin D helps with protein synthesis, muscle contraction, and muscle strength. If you can, get some sunlight exposure in the morning, even just 10 to 15 minutes. If that's not possible, talk to your doctor about vitamin D supplementation. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish like salmon also support muscle health by reducing inflammation and improving muscle protein synthesis. Including these in your diet, perhaps having salmon for breakfast occasionally, or taking a fish oil supplement, can be beneficial. Adequate sleep is another often overlooked factor in muscle health. During deep sleep, your body produces growth hormone, which is essential for muscle repair and growth. Most older adults need 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night. If you're not sleeping well, your morning protein routine won't be as effective as it could be. Sleep, nutrition, and exercise work together synergistically. Let me also address medications because this is important. Some medications can interfere with protein metabolism or contribute to muscle loss. Certain steroids, some diabetes medications, and even some blood pressure medications can have negative effects on muscle mass. If you're taking multiple medications, it's worth having a conversation with your doctor about whether any of them might be contributing to muscle loss and whether adjustments are possible. Never stop or change medications on your own, but do advocate for your muscle health in those conversations. Here's something that really concerns me: the number of older adults who are unknowingly malnourished, not because they don't have access to food, but because they're not eating enough protein. Studies show that up to half of hospitalized older adults and up to 35% of community-dwelling older adults are protein deficient. This is often because appetite decreases with age, people have dental problems that make eating difficult, or they're on limited budgets, and protein-rich foods can be expensive. If any of these apply to you, please talk to your doctor. There are resources and solutions available. Your muscle health is too important to ignore. I want to give you some troubleshooting tips because I know that implementing a new morning routine isn't always easy. If you're struggling to eat enough protein in the morning, try liquid nutrition. Protein shakes are easier to consume than solid food for many people. If you're worried about the cost, eggs are one of the most affordable protein sources available. A dozen eggs costs just a few dollars and provides a week's worth of high-protein breakfasts. If you're short on time in the morning, prepare ahead. Hard-boil eggs the night before. Portion out Greek yogurt into containers. Make overnight protein oats. There's always a solution if we're willing to be creative. If you have trouble with resistance exercises, start where you are. If you can't do a regular push-up, do wall push-ups. If you can't do a full squat, do chair squats where you just tap the chair with your bottom. If you can't use weights, use your body weight. The key is consistent effort and gradual progression. Every 2 to 3 weeks, try to make the exercises slightly more challenging. Maybe you do one more repetition. Maybe you use a slightly heavier weight. Maybe you lower yourself a little deeper in the squat. Small progressions add up to major changes over time. Let me share one final story that encapsulates everything I've been talking about. Thomas, a 79-year-old retired engineer from Miami, Florida, came to me 2 years ago after his wife passed away. He'd fallen into a deep depression, stopped eating properly, lost 30 pounds, and could barely get out of bed most days. His children were terrified they were losing him too. Thomas was a shadow of the strong, capable man he'd once been. When I examined him, his muscle mass was critically low. He was at high risk for serious complications from any illness or injury. But beyond the physical assessment, I could see the spiritual and emotional devastation. He'd given up. I sat with Thomas and his daughter, and I explained everything I'm explaining to you. I told him that his body was starving for protein, that his muscles were crying out for nutrition and stimulus, and that while we couldn't change what had happened to his wife, we could absolutely change what happens to him. I told him that getting stronger physically might help him feel stronger emotionally too. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I don't know if I have the energy to try." But his daughter squeezed his hand and said, "Dad, just try. For me, please try." Thomas started the high-protein morning routine. At first, it was a struggle, but day by day, week by week, something shifted. The physical strength he was building translated into emotional resilience. The routine gave him purpose. The progress, even though it was gradual, gave him hope. After 6 months, Thomas had gained back 18 pounds of muscle. He was walking daily, doing his resistance exercises faithfully, and had started volunteering at a local community center, teaching math to kids. He told me recently, with a smile on his face, "Rebuilding my body helped me rebuild my life. I'm not the same man I was before I lost my wife, but I'm strong again. I'm here again. I'm living again." So here's my final message to you. If you're over 60 and you've been watching your strength decline, watching your independence slip away, watching your quality of life diminish, I want you to know that it doesn't have to be this way. Sarcopenia is preventable and it's treatable. That morning habit, that high-protein breakfast within an hour of waking up, combined with simple resistance exercises, can change everything. It can give you back your strength, your confidence, your independence, and your future. Starting tomorrow morning, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. Commit to giving your muscles what they need. 30 to 40 grams of protein within an hour of waking up. Water to hydrate your muscle tissue. 10 to 15 minutes of resistance exercise to provide the stimulus your muscles need. Consistency over the next 12 weeks. That's it. That's the formula. It's simple, but it's powerful. And please, talk to your doctor before making any major changes to your diet or exercise routine, especially if you have existing health conditions or take multiple medications. This information is educational and empowering, but it's not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Your doctor can help you tailor these recommendations to your specific situation, monitor your progress, and adjust as needed. Remember, every single day you wait is another day of muscle loss that you'll have to work harder to regain. But every single day you implement these strategies is a day you're investing in your strength, your health, and your future. You have the power to change your trajectory. You have the power to protect your independence. You have the power to thrive, not just survive in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. I believe in your ability to do this. I've seen it work in thousands of patients. I've seen people transform their lives by giving their bodies what they need. You can be the next success story. So start tomorrow morning. Commit to that high-protein breakfast. Commit to those resistance exercises. Commit to showing up for yourself every single day. Your future self will thank you. If this video helped you, please share it with someone you love who's over 60. Leave a comment below telling me what your biggest challenge is when it comes to nutrition or exercise. I read every comment and will do my best to address your concerns in future videos. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. We're in this together, fighting sarcopenia, protecting muscle health, and ensuring that our later years are filled with strength, vitality, and independence. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.